I'm going to start with a warm welcome to all of you. I'm very happy to be with you and to share with you this day of celebrating the birthday of IFOAM Organics Europe. For the one that do not know me, I'm Eduardo Cuoco. I'm the director of IFOAM Organics Europe, and I'm very glad to be here and to share with you this celebration. And I have to be honest, I'm a bit excited about today. A bit excited because 20 years ago, I was working for an organic farmer association, and I was asked to monitor the establishment and then the development of IFOAM Organics Europe. And now, 20 years after, I'm here on stage as a director of this organization. Makes me really, really proud, and it's really an honor for me because I've been sharing this journey with many of the people in this room and many of the people that will come in this room, and it makes me excited and honored to be with you today. As I said, we are waiting people from all the corners of Europe, from all the segments of the supply chain. Some of you is already here, someone else is coming. And I also glad to see that Eugene managed to be with us from the Organic Federation of Ukraine. We stand in solidarity with Ukraine and with the Ukrainian people, and I'm very glad that you managed to come with us today. So thank you very much for being with us. So my task is not to speak too much, although I'm Italian, and to introduce you a bit on the topic of the day. We will have a high-level debate. We have with us Mr. Timmermans, the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, and with him we will kick out a day to talk about how we can reach the 25% organic target that the European Commission has set in the Farm to Fork and in the biodiversity strategy. And to introduce the section, I thought to take a picture of where we are now. Yeah? Where we are now. We have now 9% of organic land in Europe. We have now a market of about 52 billion, and we have consumers who trust organic farming and keep buying organic products. And it's not only about where we are in terms of land and market, but it's also about what we did in the last 20 years to improve our ecological, economic, and social sustainability standard. How we managed to increase our performances while thinking about biodiversity, climate change, and environment. So just to mention that from a productive point of view, we have been working to improve our yields, and we are performing extremely well when we go into extreme climate condition. The resilience of the organic system is very important and very good, and will be one of the strengths to face climate change. We are also providing more food to the community without external input. And especially now, in the energetic crisis that we're living, having the possibility to produce food without chemical fertilizers, without mineral fertilizers, is indeed a strength of our sector. Then I would like to mention some data from the economic point of view. Our farmers have higher net profit compared to conventional farmers. We are talking about a 5% on average, and it reached even 40% when we talk about vegetable farming. Still, we produce more jobs, keeping net profit higher, but giving more jobs to people. We produce 68% more jobs than the conventional industry. And our jobs are better paid. Maybe not the one in IFOAM Organics Europe, but the one in the farms are. We have an example for France. We have an example from France where agricultural workers in organic farms get 68% more higher salary than conventional workers in conventional farms. So as I said, short introduction, just a few numbers to give a picture of where we are now as organic development. A dynamic sector that is attracting new investment and is producing high quality food while delivering public good to society. So we have a double function. And in the last years, we have proved to be one of the solutions to face some of the societal challenges that our society is facing. Biodiversity, climate change, and so on. My observation is that we are not any longer just a production method, Mr. Timmermans. We are a political tool. We have to make use of us. We can deliver to society what the society needs. We can keep producing food for the citizen of Europe and for the citizen of the planet, and we can help you to mitigate the climate crisis that we are facing. So that's will be all from my side. Just last sentence to call on stage Rose O'Donovan. Please, Rose, if you can come. Rose.
Nice to see you, Eduardo.
So Rose is the editor-in-chief of Agra Facts. And then indeed, I would like to welcome on stage Frans Timmerman, Executive Vice President of the European Commission. Please, Mr. Timmerman.
Thank you.
And Mr. Timmermans, I take this chance. I would like to thank you both from IFOAM Organics Europe and from my personal perspective for the big commitment to the European Green Deal. We appreciate very much what you are doing for the society, what you are doing for the European citizen. We stand with you on the Green Deal. And indeed, I wanted also to thank you for being here with us. I know you have a very tough agenda, and it's great that you could be here with us. Thank you.
I mean, this is a very important birthday. Happy birthday to all of you.
Thank you very much indeed, Eduardo, and thank you indeed very much to Sylvia and Angie for inviting me here today and the IFOAM Organics team in Brussels to this very impressive location. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this high-level event on reaching the 25% organic farming target by 2030, and also, of course, to celebrate the milestone, as you said, the birthday. That is the 20th anniversary of IFOAM Organics Europe. As Eduardo said, my name is Rose O'Donovan, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Brussels-based publication Agra Facts. Now, we have a lot to get through this afternoon, and it is my pleasure to speak with yourself, Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans, no stranger, it has to be said, to anybody in this room. The main man leading the Commission's work on the European Green Deal, and of course the first European climate law to enshrine the 2050 climate neutrality target into EU legislation. A very warm welcome to yourself, and great to meet you in person.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Mr. Timmermans, the European Green Deal is what could be described as the flagship initiative of the von der Leyen administration, and you yourself, you've emerged in many ways as the face and the passionate voice of the future direction of the Green Deal. What is your vision for the future of the bloc, and what role does the Green Deal, and more specifically the Farm to Fork strategy, play within that?
Well, it's clear that if we don't change our ways, our children will be fighting wars over water and food. And I'm not exaggerating, that's a reality. That's based on science, based on analysis. But if we do change our ways, we can avoid catastrophe, we can sort of recharge our economy with new energy. We can create, as you've just seen, better and sustainable jobs for our children. And we can also create an international environment that is based on good and positive relations and on peace rather than on conflict. So there's a tremendous amount of stuff at risk, but there's also huge opportunities we can grasp. Now, if you look at the Green Deal, there's actually two parts. There's the part that has to do with decarbonizing our economy to tackle the climate crisis specifically, and there's the part that is about tackling the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. Now, sadly, we don't put them on a par, but they are equally threatening to humanity's survival. The climate crisis just as much as the biodiversity crisis, but the climate crisis to the larger public is now well understood. Sadly, we haven't reached that point yet with the biodiversity crisis, and we need to work on that in the years to come. Now, another thing that worries me, the war in Russia's aggression against Ukraine and the war they have unleashed and the horrible things they have unleashed on the Ukrainian people has strengthened Europe's resolve to wean ourselves of fossil fuels. We need to make sure we do no longer depend on Russian energy, which means that the energy transition has gotten a boost. Since the energy transition is at the heart of our Fit for 55 policy, that policy is actually, its urgency is actually increased and not decreased. So the opposite could have happened as well. No, we're now at war, don't come with your climate policy, come back in 10 years' time.
But if I may put...
Now, sadly on Farm to Fork, this is not happening.
Exactly. This is where there's been a little bit of opposition here. I suppose the geopolitical situation, as you say, the war in Ukraine, it's a number of opponents have emerged, right? And you were very vociferous at the in ComEnvy meeting on April 28 to those opponents. So maybe just a word on that, Mr. Timmermans.
I respect everyone who speaks up for their interest. Even if they're narrow interests, even if they're interests I don't share, everyone is entitled to defend their interests. So in that sense, when people like Cuoco defend their interests, that's their job. They need to do that. What I don't accept is that people use false arguments in defending their interest. And the most important thing is, please don't scare Europeans into thinking that there will be no food in Europe or that there will be food shortages in Europe. That is not going to happen. We have a food crisis globally, but that's not because there's not enough food, it's because we can't get the food from where it's being produced to where it is needed. That's what we need to solve. And we will have to do more to solve that. We've presented proposals today for special corridors to get Ukrainian wheat out of Ukraine to the markets where they need to be. But we will also have to work with the World Food Programme to prevent starvation in Africa and in other places. So let's look at the urgency we have, which is a food crisis, but it's not a food crisis of Europeans not being able to buy food. Sure. And you should not use that argument to then say everything we've decided on Farm to Fork, everything we've decided about letting part of the land recover, should now be thrown overboard, and we should go and produce as much as possible on every single piece of land we can find according to traditional means. I think that is not the right response to the crisis we are faced with now. And on top of that, if you know that I think 68% of arable land is used to produce animal feed, and at the same time, you know, we are stockpiling pork in such huge amounts today because China is not buying it right now, that I'm not sure we're making the right decisions right now. And let's stay rational about this, and let's not abandon the long-term view to just sort of lock ourselves into short-term expediency. That would be a huge mistake. And the ones who will suffer most if we make that mistake are the farming communities across the European Union who think that what's being done is in their interest. It might be in their interest for the next couple of months, but it's certainly not in their long-term interest if we move away from Farm to Fork, which is a strategy to save them, not to punish them.
If I could just delve in there, thank you. And as I said, you're a very passionate voice on this topic. So just for the record, and on the record today, you are not going to revisit any elements within the Farm to Fork strategy that Cuoco is putting pressure on, whether that's on pesticides, whether that's on fertiliser reduction targets. It will stay as is, as far as you're concerned.
Well, what we need to do is, if there is an emergency somewhere, we have to be rational. I have to be rational as well. If there is a crisis and we need to face that crisis, we will do that. If that means looking at production methods, short term, etc., we will do that. We're open to that. We will make sure that we will not get into trouble with our food production. But I have no intention whatsoever to deviate from our long-term strategy, which is the only strategy that's going to create the sustainability in Europe's agriculture that we so desperately need.
Right.
You know, if you see the speed with which pollinators disappear, if you see the speed with which droughts are causing the overuse of water, the overuse of fertilizers, the overuse of pesticides. And by the way, you know, the more fertilizer you use, the more money ends up in Putin's pockets.
Sure. I mean, as you say, the geopolitical situation has changed, but the reality is that we need to act. If I'll bring it back, if I may, Mr. Timmermans, to the topic of the day, this target towards 25% of organic farming by 2030. Are we on track? And are you confident that the CAP strategic plans embrace that target? And do you think they're ambitious enough?
I'm not happy. Enough.
Are you ever happy?
We see member states moving in the right direction, but many of them will need an extra push from us on the basis of their strategic plans. So that's what I'm more than willing to do. And what I believe is essential, and there I will also ask for your help. I'm convinced that if the European public know more broadly what is at stake, they will support us. And they will support us in the way they consume, but they will also support us in supporting these policies. But they won't do that if they don't know what is at stake. And too few people know exactly what is at stake. I think there's a huge potential market for organic food, huge. But people still think, oh, it's too expensive. Oh, the quality is less. Oh, there's a spot on this vegetable. I don't want that. I think we need to make an extra pedagogical effort broadly in society to make sure people understand that this is better quality, it's better for their health, and you contribute to the long-term sustainability of European agriculture.
Okay, and that's a topic we'll be returning to during the panel discussion in a moment. Speaking about, I suppose, the farm to fork strategy and the role of the organic sector within it, transitioning towards the sustainable food system, Mr. Timmermans. Now, we'll be discussing this in a moment with your colleague, Nathalie Chaz. What's the organics role in that broader concept to the sustainable food system, which is an overarching objective in the farm to fork strategy, part of the Green Deal? So obviously you're throwing your weight behind that too.
Absolutely, and we have made the mistake over the decades to compartmentalize everything. So we look at the production of agricultural products, we look at the marketing, we look at the logistics, we look at the shops and supermarkets, and then if we still have a bit of time left, we look at the consumers. We should be looking at this in a completely integrated way. That's why we call it farm to fork. We want consumers to virtually look into what's happening at the farm, because if they know what's happening at the farm, they will also adapt their behavior in that. We also want the whole chain to be part of that. I have seen over the last years, I hope you can confirm this, almost a revolution in retail in this sector. So especially supermarkets who traditionally would aim at the lowest possible cost now understand that there's added value also for them in presenting the healthiest foods, the best produced foods. And I think this is a real change that we should embrace and we should stimulate from the European Commission as well. And then we should also, I think, embrace the idea that it's not being paternalistic if you advise people on healthy habits. People can still choose to eat as much meat as they want, but I want them to be informed that it might be a healthier choice to eat a bit less meat and other choices they can make. Another thing that is going to help us is that increasingly you see that people want to know not just what it costs, but also where it is produced. So there's a huge market, huge opportunity to be gained if you reduce the logistical chain, if you make sure that most of the food will be produced close to the consumers.
So the short circuit idea.
Indeed, and I think there is a huge world that we can still win if we concentrate on that together.
Sure. You mentioned your friends at Copa-Cogeca, and one of their sort of like, let's say, bête noirs is this creation of an impact assessment, or the publication of an impact assessment. And yourself and your colleagues in the European Commission, you say that you concede that there will be a cost, but you say the cost of inaction will be much greater. Where are we with impact assessments on legislative proposals that are incorporated into the Farm to Fork Green Deal?
Well, I think they're barking up the wrong tree. This is something the member states should be doing. They can do this. They know exactly what the situation is in their particular member state. They know exactly which sectors they want to look into. They should go and ask them to do this extra work. We will provide them with all the information we have. And one thing I know for sure, if you are unwilling to take the long perspective on this, if you're unwilling to look into the devastation caused by overuse of pesticides, by overuse of fertilizers, if you're unwilling to look at the social devastation that is caused by just increasing intensive agriculture in the the social fabric of regions in Europe. If you're unwilling to do all of that, then of course your impact assessment will be of a different nature. But if you take a holistic approach, so a whole of society approach to this, it's a no-brainer. We can't continue to produce our food the way we're doing now. And organic production is one of the main answers. That's why we will insist on the 25%, and I'm sure we can also get there by 2030.
And what's your message today to IFOAM Organics Europe? What would you like to see them doing differently themselves? You mentioned some points about raising awareness, about, I suppose, consumer awareness that, you know, it's not all bad to integrate plant-based diets into society, into schools, green procurement, whatever it may be. So what's your message to, you know, our IFOAM Organics Europe here today and the colleagues from the sector?
First of all, the last thing you need to do is to be discouraged. Your time has come, and you've been working on this for decades, and now your time has come. So the setback we see now, which is a short-term setback caused by this horrible war, should never ever discourage you, should lead you to be even more determined, because you're on the right side of history. That's my first point. The second point is the consumers in Europe are ready for this. They are ready to look more closely at their own behavioral patterns. Thirdly, we are now also in a situation that through a combination of fertilizer prices and inflation, food is expensive, and this creates a lot of anxiety in our public. I think you are in a good position to demonstrate that your production methods in the long run are not just more sustainable, but also will provide better available and cheaper food, because energy prices will not go down substantially, so fertilizers will remain very expensive. So there are all sorts of arguments, and I'm more than willing to work closely with you to advance them also in Europe. There are all sorts of arguments that will sort of strengthen your case. The only thing we need to do, and I'm also speaking to myself, is not to be discouraged by sort of the headwinds, the stronger headwinds we're getting now, because some think they might use the war as an argument to get rid of something they never wanted, which is Fit for 55 and
the Green Deal, Farm to Fork in general.
Yeah.
One point I wanted to pick you up on, Mr. Timmermans, is promotion policy. You know, you're talking about perceptions about, oh goodness, I can't afford, you know, certain foods if they're more expensive. I'm on my budget is limited. Food prices are soaring at the moment generally, and I suppose that's driven by a multitude of factors. But on the promotion policy, there is a branch in there, or a sort of rubric in there, that's, you know, promoting organic products, which has also landed you in hot water for some of the comments you've made. So maybe just extend on that a little, and maybe give us an idea of the timeline on where we're going with the revision of promotion policy.
Well, very good question. I'll push as hard as I can on this.
Push away.
I think
just get the exclusive on this.
No, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to help you with that, I'm afraid today, because that would sort of backfire back in the office if I do that.
Okay,
I will push as hard as I can. You know, I started in EU policies, well, just after fire was mastered by humanity, so I've been in this for decades and decades. And I remember at the beginning, we were promoting at the same time, we had an ad campaign against lung cancer and an ad campaign to promote tobacco, both financed by the EU. So we've done worse than what we're doing now, but we're not perfect. We're not perfect at all today, and I just want to make sure we promote healthy lifestyles, and we don't promote unhealthy lifestyles. Now, this is just promotion. People make their own choices. If they want to live unhealthy lives, they are free to do that, and they will suffer the consequences themselves. We're not interdicting anything, but we have to promote the right things, and making organic choices is just the healthy choice, and it's also the sustainable choice in a long term. So that's as far as I can go today, telling you what my intentions are, and we'll work it out in the weeks to come.
And the timeline, Mr. Timmermans?
Exactly. Yeah. You can ask 3 times. I'll dodge the question 3 times.
Dodge the bullet. Okay.
Again, we are facing very, very strong headwinds. I don't want to give anybody additional arguments to make the storm even bigger, but I just want you to understand where I stand and how I will develop the policy and in which direction the policy will go. Okay,
well listen, I think you've given overall a very positive message to everybody here today. I want to thank you on behalf of IFOAM Organics Europe. A very warm thank you to Executive Vice President Franz Timmermans.